Since the beginning of time, people have wondered about death. What happens when the last breath leaves us? Is there nothing? Or is there a hidden world, a place beyond the veil, where love, loss, and memory continue to breathe? The ancient Greeks told stories of that mystery, and among them, one name carried the echo of eternal love: Orpheus. They said no mortal ever played music like him. When he touched the strings of his lyre, the world itself paused to listen. The rivers forgot to flow. The winds grew still. Even the stones trembled softly with longing. His songs were not just melodies, they were prayers given shape, and his heart belonged to Eurydice. She was the joy that walked beside him, the laughter that colored his days. Together, they were as sunlight and song. Until one day, the world grew silent. A serpent struck from the grass. Eurydice's cry rose once and was gone. Her body grew still, and her soul slipped into the shadows. Orpheus sat beside her grave for days without food, without voice, until his tears became dust. But music does not die quietly. One night, under the silver gaze of the moon, he lifted his lyre once more. The notes that followed were not meant for the living. They were meant for the gods, for death itself. And death listened, with his song as his guide. Orpheus walked to the edge of the living world, past rivers where the stars drowned in black water, past the cave where shadows breathed like smoke. He crossed into the underworld, where no mortal dared to go. The air there was heavy, filled with the whispers of countless souls. They drifted past him, faint and cold, drawn to the warmth of his song. Even Cerberus, the great three-headed hound of Hades, lowered his heads and rested, lulled by the melody. Deeper he walked, until the throne of Hades and Persephone came into view. The Lord and Lady of the Dead sat silent, their faces carved from darkness and moonlight. Orpheus did not speak. He only played. And in that song was everything he had lost. Every memory of laughter, of love, of her hand in his. It was grief. Turned to music. When the last note faded, the underworld was still, and even the dead seemed to weep. Hades, the silent king, looked upon him, and for the first time, the god's voice trembled with pity. "Take her," he said. "Lead her to the light, but look not upon her until you reach the world above." Orpheus bowed, and turned back the way he came. Behind him, footsteps echoed softly. Eurydice's spirit followed, silent, fragile, real, through the tunnels of stone, past the sleeping hound, upward through the fading dark. He climbed. The light of the living world shimmered ahead, a thin line, a promise. But love is never free of doubt, and the silence behind him grew too heavy to bear. Was she still there? Was it all a cruel dream? He turned, and for one heartbeat, he saw her, her face lit by the faint glow of dawn, her eyes filled with love and sorrow. Then, she was gone, drawn back into the dark. As if the earth itself inhaled, Orpheus cried out, but only echoes answered him. He returned to the world above, alone, his lyre silent, his heart hollow as stone. They said he wandered the forests for years, playing only to the wind and the night. His music became softer, sadder, until even that faded. In time, Orpheus vanished. Some say he was torn apart by the wild. Others say he simply walked into the mist, following the sound of her voice. One last time. The Greeks said this: love can challenge death, but doubt destroys everything. And perhaps, in some quiet corner of the underworld, a faint song still drifts through the dark, carrying both their names. Far to the east, long before Greece was born, there was Sumer, a land of clay and stars, and in that land a goddess named Inanna. She was the lady of love, of war, of the morning and evening star. Her laughter brought spring, her tears the floods of the Tigris, but one day, she turned her gaze downward, toward the shadowed realm of her sister, Ereshkigal, queen of the underworld. No one knew why she chose to descend. Some said pride, some said curiosity, others whispered she sought to understand death itself. Before her stood 7 gates, and at each, a guardian waited. At the first gate, he demanded her crown. She gave it. At the second, her necklace. She gave it. At the third, her jewels, her bracelets, her robe. Gate by gate, she was stripped of all she had been. The goddess of the heavens entered the realm of dust, naked, powerless, human. Ereshkigal waited on her throne of obsidian. Around her, the walls dripped with the slow breath of time. When Inanna raised her eyes, she saw in her sister not rage, but sorrow still. The law of the underworld was firm. No living soul may stand before the queen unpunished. Ereshkigal struck her down, and Inanna hung lifeless from a hook on the wall. 3 days passed. 3 nights. Above, the world began to fade. Seeds refused to sprout. Animals grew silent. Lovers forgot desire, but Inanna was not forgotten. Her loyal servants went to Enki, god of wisdom and water. They wept and begged for help. Enki formed 2 small beings of clay. They were neither male nor female, neither living nor dead. He sent them below, carrying the food and water of life. They entered Ereshkigal's hall and found the queen crying. They did not speak, only listened. When she moaned, they echoed her sorrow. When she sighed, they sighed. Moved by their compassion, Ereshkigal offered a gift, anything they wished. They asked for the body of Inanna. Ereshkigal gave it. They sprinkled her with the food and water of life, and Inanna breathed again. But no one leaves the underworld without replacement. Someone must take her place. When she rose to the world above, she found her husband Dumuzi seated on a golden throne, laughing. Wearing no mourning clothes, anger filled her heart. With a single word, she sent the demons of the underworld upon him. They dragged him below, yet compassion stirred once more. Dumuzi's sister begged to share his fate, so the year was divided, half with Inanna under the sun, half with Ereshkigal beneath the earth, and thus the seasons were born. When Dumuzi rises, flowers bloom. When he descends, the fields wither. The Sumerians whispered, even gods must pay the price of death, and even death must yield to love. Across the deserts of time, beneath the endless gold of the sun, another story took root. The story of Osiris, the green-skinned king of life and death. He ruled Egypt with wisdom and gentleness. The Nile rose at his command, and in its waters people saw his spirit. But envy has always followed greatness. Said his brother burned with it. He whispered lies among the nobles, and one night invited Osiris to a feast. There stood a beautiful chest, carved and inlaid with cedar and silver. Set smiled and said, whoever fits inside shall have it as a gift. Each guest tried, but only Osiris fit. The moment he lay within, the lid slammed shut. Molten lead sealed it, and Set's laughter echoed as the chest was cast into the Nile. The river carried it away, through reeds and darkness, until it came to rest at Byblos, where a tamarisk tree grew around it, its trunk encasing the coffin in living wood. Isis searched the earth for her husband. Through dust storms and deserts she wandered, guided by dreams and tears. When she found the tree, she begged the king of Byblos for its trunk. He gave it, and she opened it to see Osiris. Still but whole she wept, and her tears filled the Nile. With her breath she spoke words of magic, and for one fleeting night Osiris awoke. From that union came Horus, the falcon-eyed avenger. But dawn came, and Osiris faded once more. Set, hearing of his return, tore the body into 14 pieces. Scattering them across the land, Isis gathered them again. Every limb, every fragment, except one lost to the river. Through devotion, she restored him, and the gods, moved by her love, made Osiris king of the dead. He ruled not with cruelty, but with balance. He weighed every heart against the feather of Ma'at, the truth that holds the universe together. If the heart was light, the soul entered the field of reeds, a mirror of Egypt itself, green, fertile, eternal. If the heart was heavy, Ammit the devourer consumed it, and the soul was lost forever. In Osiris, the Egyptians saw hope. To die was not to vanish, but to sail west into the night, and rise again with the dawn. They painted his story on tomb walls, spoke his name in prayers, and believed that through him, every ending was a beginning. Osiris was not just the god of death. He was the promise that life would return. And now, let us return to Greece, where beneath mountains and oceans, the realm of Hades waited in stillness. The Greeks did not see death as evil, only inevitable. Hades did not cause it. He merely received what was due. The underworld stretched vast and layered. Its gates opened to the river Styx, a black current where the boatmen Charon ferried souls. Each passenger paid a single coin, placed under the tongue by loved ones before burial. Beyond the river lay the fields of Asphodel, gray meadows where most souls wandered, their memories dimmed, their voices faint. To the right, Elysium, the land of heroes and poets, where the air shimmered gold and the sea sang softly. To the left, Tartarus and the pit of eternal punishment, where the wicked faced their own echoes of cruelty. And in the center, upon a throne of obsidian and silver, sat Hades. He was not cruel. He was not kind. He simply was, a silent judge holding balance between all that lives and all that ends. Beside him sat Persephone, a queen both sorrowful and serene. Each spring she rose to the surface world, and flowers followed her steps. Each autumn she returned, and the earth grew still once more. Even the gods feared Hades' name, for to speak it was to invite his gaze. Yet mortals prayed to him quietly, not for life but for peace after death. The poet said his halls were endless, lined with the dreams of those who once lived. There heroes met their fate, and lovers found each other again in shadowed fields. For all their fear, the Greeks understood something simple. Death was not punishment. It was order, and so, in the hush between heartbeat and silence, they whispered his name with reverence. These are the whispers of the underworld, stories carried through dust and centuries, of music that defied the grave, of goddesses who dared descend, of kings torn apart and born anew, of silent rulers keeping balance in the dark. For the Greeks, the Sumerians, the Egyptians, death was never nothingness. It was a kingdom, a rhythm, a promise that life and death are two verses of the same song. Perhaps that is why we still tell these stories, because in their silence, we hear ourselves. Thank you for listening. Until next time, rest well.